everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Whistle. My name is Henry Lapin. I'm joined by Jason Generalis, Rob Frangione, and Will Sexton. And this episode marks Season 4, Episode 2 to Beyond the Whistle. Today we're going to be talking about the NFL Week 3 recap and some of our picks for the key Week 4 games. So without further ado, let's get into it. Week 3, we saw a lot of great games. We saw a lot of upsets and a lot of great debuts. Andy Dalton and some other players. We saw Daniel Jones take the Giants out of the dumpster fire of New York and into the winning category. Jason, what are some of your thoughts about Week 3?
For Week 3, I thought it was a good slate of games. I mean, as a Jets fan, I love the Jets Patriots game. It was a lifetime of revenge on a team that terrorized my childhood.
I'm liking the eye contact right here.
Really eye contact
about my guys.
I would say a key game for me is that Rams-Niners game where, I mean, a lot of people counted the Rams as out. They completed a comeback against arguably one of the better teams in football. I mean, everyone had high hopes for them in that NFC, and I just think that was a great game, and we could expect to see more out of the NFC West.
Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, not as good of a start to the week for me, seeing the Patriots get demolished by the Jets on national television, But after that, I think the Sunday slate was pretty good. I really enjoyed the Sunday night game with the Chiefs and Falcons. There was quite a bit of controversy there at the end of the game with the no-call PI. I mean, I will say this, that the Falcons got like 3 first downs from penalties on the next drive, and yet they couldn't score, but we don't have to talk about that. But overall, pretty entertaining slate of games. You had a pretty good defensive game with the Eagles and the Saints. So that was pretty interesting. Not a low scoring, but that's never a bad thing. Like you said, Rams, 49ers, and that comeback. And, I mean, even the other primetime games, like the Commanders at the Bengals, that was fun to watch. So,
Will?
I really like the Cowboys and the Ravens game. I liked watching the Cowboys coming back. Almost thought they would win, but now the Ravens just came out on top. Not much to say about that game, but just a very interesting week. Very entertaining, like Rob said.
Yeah, so I saw one of the key storylines was the backup quarterback play. We saw maybe one of the worst backup quarterbacks in the league, Skylar Thompson, just look like a fourth-string high school quarterback out there.
We're talking about Daniel Jones for a second.
Nope, not a backup yet in his career. And then we saw Andy Dalton on the polar opposite end just dominate. I mean, 36 points. That's more points than Bryce Young and the Panthers have ever scored with Bryce Young as their quarterback, destroying the Raiders and also just destroying any confidence that Bryce Young had left. I mean, you get just beaten by Andy Dalton 16 games into your NFL career, might need to give it up soon. But Week 3, we also have our best player of the week. So, Jason, who do you pick for the player of the week for Week 3?
I have, which will come as a surprise to not many, but Juwan Jennings as the wide receiver 3 on the Niners, albeit, I mean, Deebo Samuel and George Kittle are out. So he's getting more targets, but even with the more targets, I mean, he lived up to what a wide receiver 1 could be. He had 11 receptions, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns, which is just fantastic for any receiver to go, but even as like I said, like someone who we didn't really expect to put up that stat line. I mean, I'm sure a lot of fantasy leagues have him picked up now, but I mean, he was on waivers for a long time in most of them. And I think what's even more impressive is I believe he only got 13 targets that game. He got 11 receptions, which is just great. I mean, you see star receivers that aren't getting that completion percentage. And I mean, it kind of brings the question if Brock Purdy is more than just a game manager, as some say.
Yeah, so my pick, I got to get my Giants bias in somewhere. I'm going with Malik Neighbors, 6th overall pick in this draft, has looked phenomenal through 3 weeks of his NFL career, not to mention preseason and training camp. He made 2 spectacular catches that you expect from NFL vets, but to see that from a rookie in his 3rd game in the NFL season, it's just something you don't see often. The body control, he can just rip the ball out of the defender's hand from what was a horrible pass by Daniel Jones. He just took that interception off Daniel Jones' stat line and made it a touchdown. So Neighbors, player of the week, he had 78 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 receptions, and he's just going to be a top 10 receiver in the league by the end of the year. Rob?
Yeah, I mean, that catch that he had was just absurd. I was sitting there watching it with one of my friends, and we just went nuts. Anyway, My pick, it's actually one of your division rivals. I'm going with the rookie second overall pick, Jaden Daniels. Almost called him Jaden Davis, kid out of Michigan. But, I mean, he had a near perfect game against the Bengals that night. Looked great with Terry McLaurin. I got to say, I feel great for him because he's finally got a quarterback, or it looks like he's finally got a quarterback that he can rely on. I've got a stat line over here. He was 21 of 23 for passing, like I said, near perfect, which you really don't see a whole lot in the NFL these days. He had 254 yards, which might not seem impressive. With that efficiency, that's what you need to win a game. And he had 2 touchdowns. I want to say he had around 40 yards rushing on top of that. And most importantly, he got the win, which moves them to, I believe, is it 2-1 or 1-2?
2-1.
2-1. That's right. Yep. So they're actually one of the top teams in the NFC East now, which might not be saying a lot, but hey, that's what we need earlier in the season.
Me next?
Okay.
Okay.
Sexton.
You heard the stats, but surprisingly enough, my choice was also Jawan Jennings. Some of those catches were just amazing. And all that, I think he got like 46 points in fantasy, something like that. All that just to lose to the 0-2 Rams. So it's kind of unfortunate, but that's my player of the week. He played amazing.
Yeah, so we're going from the highs of week 3 to the lows. Our underachiever of the week. This could be fantasy, on the field, off the field, whatever, but these players did not meet the standards that they should. Jason, who do you got?
I have Raheed Shaheed. There were some questions before the week. I mean, especially with Chris Olave not doing so well in the first 2 games, if he could step up into a wide receiver 1 role. Obviously, I didn't buy that. I didn't buy that right away. But I thought he would stay consistent, even if he didn't get a big bomb touchdown like he did those first 2 weeks, he would get a couple targets, couple receptions, and he just had none of that. He had none of that week 3. He had, I think it was 3 targets, 0 receptions, 0 fantasy points. Nothing on his stat line to show that he was even at the game. I mean, he really has to step it up if he wants to stay in the question, if he wants to take Chris Olave's spot, and if he wants to truly step it up as a receiver. I mean, we saw he could do good things in the first 2 weeks of the season. Maybe he has to hash it out with Derek Carr, see if he can get some more targets, but I just don't think he put up a performance.
Yeah, thank God I have him on my fantasy bench.
Yeah, me too.
My underachiever of the week is Deshaun Watson. On the field, off the field, not a great guy. 21 of 37, 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 61 PFF grade. Those stats are not terrible, but I was watching the game, flying home from Michigan, and God, those reads were terrible. It's like he saw massages all over the field. He was seeing red and blue. He just saw nothing. 61 PFF grade was the worst by any quarterback. That's worse than any game that Bryce Young had. Even though he had 2 touchdowns, almost 200 yards, he completed barely over half of his passing attempts, and just his career might end a lot shorter than we thought when he was on the Texans. So underachiever of the week got to be Deshaun Watson. Rob, who do you got?
Jeez, tell me how you really feel. For me, I'm going with a guy that I just traded for in fantasy, Mr. Josh Jacobs, Packers running back. I believe he had a whopping 5.3, 5.8 points for me as my RB2, replacing Jahmyr Gibbs. His stat line, not great. He had only 43 yards versus a pretty bad Titans team. I mean, that defense has really not had much to show for, especially, losing to the Bears, who have looked just awful. And we won it. But, I mean, you want an idea of how bad it was? Malik Willis outrushed him, by a lot. I think he almost had double his yards, which is that's unacceptable for Josh Jacobs, who just 2 years ago was the NFL rushing champion.
Is that praise for Willis or a diss to Jacobs?
Oh, diss to Jacobs by far. It might be a diss
Whoa,
to
whoa.
Malik Willis, dude. I mean, because he's not really anything special. So
Whoa.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
No
Oh,
Willis
yeah.
diss
he had
on
plenty
this
of
podcast.
rushing yards
Jordan-
in the game.
Jordan Love will take that spot right back the second he's healthy. I mean, you want an idea of how bad, or not how bad he is, but how desperate they are to replace him? They were considering putting Jordan Love back in the week after he got hurt. So yeah, I'm not buying into the Malik Willis.
Malik
He's a
Willis,
tough guy.
He won a game. He also
Yeah, he beat the Titans.
Yeah, but you see Skylar Thompson, who's what is he doing for the Dolphins? You have a backup QB that could win
At least
games.
Malik Willis looked good coming out of college. He was considered to be a
out of
first round,
Liberty.
maybe second round draft
Playing
pick.
plumbers and mailmen every game in Liberty.
Well, no, I mean, you didn't really expect that out of Skylar Thompson, though, didn't you? Where did he come
I
from,
did.
Nevada?
It was a good week overall for backup QBs.
Oh, absolutely,
Other than
but yeah.
Skylar Thompson.
My point being, Josh Jacobs underachieved. especially for me. I'm a little
Yeah.
biased because I am on fantasy and he did nothing for me.
I totally agree.
Will, I know you got a little bias in this pick. Underachiever of the week.
I mean, it hurts to say it, but Sam Laporta, I mean, I have him on 3 of my fantasy teams. He's just playing horrible. Let me read some of his stats. Versus the Cardinals, he got 36 yards. Buccaneers, he got 13 yards. No TDs this year so far. And versus the Rams, he got 45. He's just been playing horrible. I think this week he got 5 fantasy points. Based on last year, I mean, last year I would think he would be a top 5. I think he was like a top 5 tight end last year. And this year, I don't even think he's top 10 so far. So, yeah, pretty clear pick.
If I lose my fantasy league because of
Yeah.
him and I have to shave my head because of him, I'm blaming you.
Did you
I
pick
feel-
did you pick him in the second round in every draft? Because that's
No,
3 rounds.
No, like 3rd round.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Yeah, that
That's so
tight end pick in the
All
third round.
all tight ends
Yeah,
are
good
awful.
point.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
what is Mark Andrews doing? He's getting
I
0
just-
points on my
I
fantasy
just-
team.
Yeah,
Pick him up
Travis
off-
Kelce isn't playing too hot either.
I just picked him
Yeah,
up off
that's
the
what-
waiver wire in my league. That's how much he's regressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of underachievers,
So now we're going to our underdogs of the week. Everyone loves an underdog, and we're going to pick against the spread for some of these. So, Jason, who do you think's going to upset this week?
Originally, I thought I read this wrong when I was reading the spreads. The Rams being dogs under the Bears was it was crazy for me. They are 2.5 dogs under the Bears. Granted, it's just a field goal that they have to win by. It's practically a money line bet. But I just think the Rams coming off after a comeback against the Niners. Granted, they have 2 of their receivers out. But, I mean, I think that other people, Tutu Atwell got a couple good catches. Last game, I think Kyron could step up into the role. And, I mean, the Bears really don't have a good offense or defense. They don't have a lot going for them. And I just think the Rams are going to win this game. I think the Rams should be 6.5 point favorites. I would take the Rams 6.5 point favorites over the Bears.
even without Cup and Nakua.
Even without Cup and Nakua.
Valid.
They-
Hey, Kyron went. Kyron
yeah,
had a day.
Kyron had a day. They beat the Niners, who would smoke the Bears.
Okay.
And I just what have the Bears done to earn that spot as the favorite?
Painted fingernails and funny touchdown celebrations. That's it.
I guess so. That's all. That's all you need for the NFL to declare you favorite.
Yeah. So I have the Indianapolis Colts plus 1.5 hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers, mainly because watching Steelers play football is like watching paint dry. It is one of the most boring things. I would never put that on my worst enemy. I mean, watching Justin Fields just dink and dunk downfield, handing it off to Najee Harris, who runs like he has cement shoes. It's just awful to watch. And if you really think about it, the Steelers are favored in this game. Most home teams get 3 points to the spread when they're the home team. So really, Steelers are favored in this game. I know Richardson's looked terrible for the Colts. He makes some of the craziest throws that no other quarterbacks can make, and then misses throws that Daniel Jones could make with his left hand with his eyes closed. So I think we're going to see the better part of AR on Sunday, and I think Colts should pull this one out. Rob?
I hope the Colts win.
Yeah.
I love watching Richardson when he's playing good. I'm taking Minnesota over Green Bay. I mean, you heard my rant about the Packers and Malik Willis just last segment, who I'm assuming will be starting again this week. I mean, the Minnesota defense had a field day with C.J. Stroud. They were just locking everything down. I don't think they're going to have an issue with Malik Willis throwing to Jaden Reed. That's not a diss to Jaden Reed. I think he's a great player, but I don't think they're going to have a problem with Malik Willis. And, I mean, that offense has just looked phenomenal. I mean, they could have – who could they have? They could have probably, old Peyton Manning playing right now. I mean, 2016 Peyton Manning playing right now, and they look fine. I mean, they could have Paxton Lynch, one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever watched playing quarterback, thrown to Justin Jefferson, and Jefferson would have 150 yards a game. Just checking it down to T.J. Hawkins is not back yet, but Aaron Jones. I mean, he looked great against the Texans last week, and yeah, it's just I think the Minnesota should win
defense
this.
is doing phenomenal. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they shut
Oh,
out
yeah.
they shut out like the Niners. What did the
Niners
Niners
got
get?
locked
Like
down.
7?
Yeah.
Texans got locked down.
Yeah.
2 of the best offenses on paper.
Giants got locked down. We're not calling them a great offense, but Browns
Yeah.
defense.
No one
hasn't
mentioned
looked
that
great.
one.
Yeah.
Pretty good, yeah.
Sexton, I want to say
and that-
I love this pick for me.
I know, and that kind of like.
I don't.
I also don't.
I mean, the Browns defense was great, and Malik Neighbors and Daniel Jones played really well. I feel like that game, so I feel like they're going to continue it.
So you think Giants are
Against the
going to win
Cowboys.
or cover the spread?
I think they're going to win.
Whew.
I think they're going to win.
a bold
I think
a
they're
bold
gonna-
shot.
I know.
Bold
With a
call.
lot. I don't think Trayvon Diggs is playing. I think he's still injured, right?
No, Diggs is back. I thought it was Deron
Yeah,
Bland.
Deron Bland is
Bland.
back.
Oh, Bland. But no, I still think Malik Neighbors.
Yeah,
is
Neighbors
gonna-
and Diggs been beefing
Yeah.
a lot on Twitter. Reminded me of Josh Norman OBJ matchups.
All right, let's not go there.
So everyone needs a little help with their fantasy lineups. Me, I'm sitting at 1 and 2. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I'm really trying not to lose this year. Bad punishment. So I could use as much help as anyone. And for our start and sit segment, I'm going to start us off starting Deontay Johnson. I had him on the bench. I drafted him late in the round, the fantasy draft this year. And last week he put up 122, 15 yards per reception and 1 touchdown. He looked like a different man with Bryce Young not throwing him the football. I mean, no one can really look good when Bryce Young is your quarterback. Andy Dalton just dropped back and threw that ball right to Deontay Johnson. And as for my sits, Trevor Lawrence, he looks like a terrible quarterback. I mean, he looks like Daniel Jones with long blonde hair down back there. And at Trevor Banks Stadium now, I think they renamed it for him. It's great that they lost with that name. I mean, he's projected 14.8. I expect him to get less than 12. Jason, who do you got? Start and sit.
I have. I'll start out with my sit. I have Michael Pittman Jr. versus Pittsburgh, and I mean you pick the Colts to win over Pittsburgh. I do not think that is the case. I think that MPJ won't. It just all depends how Anthony Richardson plays, and I don't think he's proved that he could be consistent enough where they could win that game, where his receivers can get good receptions. I just don't think MPJ will get his 11.1 points that he's projected. I think he will fall short at maybe 8. And I mean, if you need 8 points, start him. But for me, I mean, I'm in lesser man leagues, 8-man leagues, where 8 points is a bad performance, and we would rather have someone else. For example, Kyron. I have him as my start. I think with Nakua and Cup out, he's getting plenty of touches. I think he got 24 touches last game, 89 rushing yards, which is great, and two touchdowns. He also had a couple of receptions where he's filling in the shoes of what I mean. That Rams offense is great receivers. He's trying to fill in for them, and I just think 19's a big line, but I think he'll step up to the occasion. He's playing Chicago, who doesn't have the best run defense. They've let up 125 yards a game so far this season, and I just think Kyron could totally have a game. He could have a boom.
Who's even thinking about sitting him? He was a bona fide first-round pick in every draft I saw.
No, I totally agree. I don't think anyone's thinking about sitting him. I just think I put him on here to say that he is he's going to exceed his 19-point projection.
Well, yeah, Kyron torched me last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have Kyron in a couple of my
Oh, yeah.
leagues.
All right.
I was always a Kyron believer.
So for me, I'm gonna be starting Travis Etienne. I mean, in a week where the Bills just completely curb stomped the Jaguars, he still put up a solid stat line. I think he had 12.5 in fantasy. I don't have the yards. I do have the yards pulled up somewhere. Let me find it. Let's see. Yeah, 68 yards on the ground. He had 4 catches for 17 yards, so still a solid receiving option. Last week, and they're playing the Texans. Last week, Aaron Jones had a great performance against them in fantasy, and I think that Travis Etienne's a similar player. He's got a similar play style, and I think the same thing's going to happen. Now, I'm not saying the Jaguars are going to win that game. I think the Texans should have a day there, but I think that Travis Etienne will be a solid player. On the sitting side, call me crazy, I'm taking Zay Flowers versus Buffalo. He was basically non-existent. Oh, yeah, you didn't like that one?
No.
He was basically non-existent versus Dallas in a game where, I mean, outside of the last 10 minutes, they blew them out. That was just the Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry show. Did I say that right?
Patrick Ricard. Don't
Ricard?
disrespect him.
Did he?
Yeah, a couple great blocks in that game.
Oh, yeah, the blocks. Sorry. We're talking about fantasy, though. That doesn't really matter. But, I mean, this has been a primarily Lamar Jackson-led offense, and, I mean, he's really been making it happen with his feet and his legs. So, I mean, I don't really think that Zay Flowers is going to have that type of day versus a Buffalo defense that thus far in the season has looked very good.
I mean, I
Especially
think even
versus the
Paris
Jaguars.
Campbell outscored Zay Flowers in that game.
Yeah.
That's saying
Giants
something.
legend, Paris Campbell.
Paris Campbell.
I got Etienne
Some
and
good
Flowers
fantasy
in both
names.
leagues, and they are both starting for me. So
Start ETN, I'm telling you.
yeah, he's my RB1.
My Alec Pierce pick a couple weeks ago, that was a smash. So
All right, Will, who do you got starting sitting?
Yeah, so I'll start with sit. Back to my underachiever, Sam Laporta. you should definitely sit him. He is he's already questionable. I feel he was carried out on a stretcher last game. Yeah, he was carried on a stretcher. Yeah, he was carried on a stretcher last game. He's questionable. I think he has a
It's a low
hip
ankle
bend or-
sprain.
Low ankle
Jeez.
sprain. Yeah. So who knows if he's even playing? But either way, I don't think he's not gonna play well. Not gonna get any targets from Jared Goff. And then start, I'm gonna go with Malik Neighbors. Back to what I was saying. If Daniel Jones can actually have a decent arm and play like he did against the
Whoa, did you see him last week?
The Browns.
Week 1. Neighbors and Daniel Jones have had a Manning and Manning and OBJ type connection.
yeah.
I think Neighbors is doing the lion's share
Yeah,
of the
I
work
think
there.
no, but Neighbors has been putting up crazy fantasy points. So if you haven't already, start Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, I'm going to take this advice into consideration. Not shaving my head this year. So week 4 is starting tomorrow night with the Giants hosting the Cowboys. I know I'll be watching. I know I will be skipping gym on Friday morning because I will be too tired celebrating the Giants' victory. So, Jason,
Tired, huh?
who is that key week 4 matchup, and who do you think is going to come out on top?
All right, we are looking at the Eagles at the Buccaneers. They faced each other in the playoffs last year. It did not end well for the Eagles. The Bucs won 32-9, eliminating the Eagles from playoff contention. The Eagles and the Bucs both did not have the best week last week, with the Bucs getting defeated and the Eagles barely winning. They won by a field goal against the Saints. I think it was 15-12. Well, the Eagles on defense, they held the Saints offense, who put up 90 points in the first 2 weeks. They held them to 12 points, which I think was amazing. I was expecting the Saints to actually curb stomp the Eagles. I thought the Saints were going to put up 20 plus on them, and the Eagles really held them. It was very impressive, and I don't think based on how Baker played, based on how the entire Bucs team played last week, that they are going to have enough offense to actually outscore the Eagles in what they could do with the offensive side of the ball with Saquon Barkley, with now that Devontae Smith is out, Dallas Goedert. I just think that the Eagles are going to win this game. I think it's going to be pretty close, but I think the Eagles are going to come out on top by about a touchdown.
Hope you're wrong. I love Baker Mayfield. I've said that enough.
I don't
Was it
like the
big?
Eagles. It pained me to say that the Eagles were going to win.
Yeah.
I don't like the Eagles.
Yeah.
But I just think it's going to happen.
All right, so I'm talking about the Vikings at Packers. And one of the most historic matchups of all time. The Packers lead this rivalry 65-57 with 3 ties between them. So it's a very close all-time matchup, just 8 wins separating them all time. And will Jordan Love start? That is the biggest question. I really think that if he starts, that the Packers will come out on top. And if Malik Willis is in there, then the Vikings are going to come out on top. I really think Jordan Love is the deciding factor in this game. Malik Willis, he had what it takes to, beat the sorry Titans defense with Will Levis on that side of the ball. And I think that Sam Darnold for the Vikings has just looked incredible with Justin Jefferson. He's having another Baker Mayfield reference, a Baker Mayfield-like career resurrection here. Could he become the franchise quarterback, at least for the next couple of years, till J.J. McCarthy is ready to take that starting role? Who knows? But I think Jordan Love will be the deciding factor in this game, but I still think Vikings are going to come out on top. Rob?
Yeah, for me, I've got the Bills at the Ravens, which will be Sunday night on NBC. Primetime game right there.
Great game.
If the Ravens can get it together starting this week, get back up to 2-2, this could be a future divisional round game, maybe even an AFC championship game. It's just unexpectedly star-studded matchup. The Bills, they lose Stephon Diggs, and yet they come back with probably the best offense they've had in a couple of years since Diggs first got to them. I really think that this is just going to be maybe a shootout. I think maybe 40, 50 points combined from these teams. I'd love to see Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry just get it going the same way they did versus Dallas. A little fun fact, I don't think they haven't played since 2022 when the Bills took them down 23-20. And, who knows? If Josh Allen can keep doing what he's been doing, spreading the ball out around Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman, those guys, I think we could see a similar result today or on Sunday.
James Cook, definitely.
Yes,
The key
sorry.
part of the offense.
Had him on my team. Couldn't believe it.
I had him
Yeah.
last year. He even played well last year. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's looked great so far. Against the Dolphins, I mean, they took him out of the game versus the Jaguars this past week.
Yeah, they took everyone
Kind of why I
out.
lost in fantasy, but I mean that's how good he's been doing so far. So yeah, I'd expect him to have a pretty good game against this Ravens defense.
All right, well,
Covering the Seahawks-Lions game, I think it's going to be a very close game. Like in past years, Seahawks have randomly blown out the Lions. Even last year, our great offense, our subpar defense, Seahawks still won. And I'm sorry to say, from myself and fellow Lions fans, but I think the Seahawks are going to win. I think it's going to be a low, tight game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but the Seahawks defense has just been looking phenomenal. And, yeah, I think it's going to be 27-24.
I gotta say, it's always fun when those two
Not
teams
too
play.
low scoring.
Yeah,
They've been against each other like the past couple seasons.
Yeah,
I think.
and
Like,
just
going
coming back
3 or 4 years.
just even coming back to like the 2022 season,
That was a great game.
yeah,
That
48,
was-
yeah,
that-
October 2nd, 2022, 48-45, then followed by January 2nd, 2022, 51-29, and then even last year they Seahawks won 37-30 in overtime. So
Yeah.
it's something about it.
I'm not a
something's in the
Lions
air
fan.
when
I'm not a
those teams
Seahawks
keep
fan. I think the Lions can pull
Really?
it out.
Yeah.
They have gone a lot better for defense.
Yeah,
Defense-wise, but
I just think the Seahawks people are over. They are 3-0. Who have they beaten? They beat the Patriots in overtime. Like that wasn't a crazy win. I don't know the schedule. Who else did they beat?
Past week they had give me 1 second. Just scrolled right past it. Seahawks had the Dolphins, the Skylar Thompson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dolphins, who
the
they just
Dolphins.
played.
And it
was,
could be
like,
Lions could win. It's just
I don't know.
based on past years. And
Lions gotta
there's
get the Odegaard.
As of right now, I have no gauge on the Seahawks. Like when they play high school level teams, it's not you can't really
I feel
decide.
the same way about the Steelers, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
All right, thank you everybody for watching. We're going to leave this with 2 new questions. Will we get another Will Levis photogenic week? And will Derek Carr hit another Michael Jackson end zone dance? We'll see you next time on Beyond the Whistle. I'm Henry Lapin, Jason Generalis, Rob Frangione, and Will Sexton. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.